National Desk, America's News Now.
The death toll is still climbing in the Middle East as the war between Israel and Hamas continues. How the U.S. is trying to prevent the conflict from escalating. And Alaska Airlines passengers say they've had anxiety and insomnia ever since a pilot allegedly tried to cut the engines, what they're now asking for from the airline. And what a dramatic change in hiring across the country signals about the economy. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. We're glad you're with us on a Friday. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is now in Jordan to meet with Arab world leaders tomorrow, was back in Israel earlier today for the fourth time since war broke out nearly a month ago as a show of unity with Israel, but also to urge the Israelis to minimize the casualties to civilians caught in the crossfire, and reiterated the need for a pause in fighting to help civilians and the hostages being held by Hamas.
A number of legitimate questions were raised in our discussions today, including how to use any period of pause to maximize the flow of humanitarian assistance, how to connect a pause to the release of hostages.
But Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there will be no cessation of fighting until all of the hostages are released first. On the ground in Gaza, the IDF says they have breached defenses inside Gaza City, where they claim 60% of the rockets fired into Israel originate from. Meantime, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike groups have been conducting exercises in the Mediterranean Sea in an effort to deter an escalation of war in the region. The Eisenhower will travel through the Suez Canal to the Red Sea when the exercises are over. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech today praising Hamas's actions on October 7th, but denied taking part in the planning of the massacre. He called for a ceasefire in Gaza, but all options are on the table if Israel continues to fire upon Hamas. Nasrallah also said Hezbollah is not deterred by the U.S. Navy, and if wider war opens, the U.S. Navy will be a target. Currently, Hezbollah and IDF forces are exchanging fire, but there is not a full war between the two right now. Meantime, Israel maintains their objective in this war is to eliminate the terrorist threat on Israeli citizens. We know Hamas has confirmed their mission in their war is simply to kill. Our Janae Bowens has more on the claims of atrocities.
Had a very, very special sense of humor, which everybody appreciated. He was a leader everywhere he went.
Ishar Shai beams about the sweet memories of his 20-year-old son, Yaron Ori Shai. Hamas killed Yaron during its October 7th terror attack on Israel. Yaron was a soldier stationed at the Israeli-Gaza border.
These people came with written action plans as to how to burn babies alive, how to behead young ladies in front of their families, how to torture parents in front of their children, and then to kill everybody.
In addition to reports of burning babies alive and beheading women, there are reports of Hamas terrorists hearing the sounds of children in safe rooms and shooting them up until there's silence.
I think that calling them terrorists is some kind of a compliment. These barbarian savages.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken gave this account Friday of Hamas destroying a family in Israel.
And then as the father comes staggering out, shoots him down. And then the boys come out. And they run into their house. And the camera in the house is filming everything. And they're crying. Where's Daddy?
This is a situation that humanity should not and cannot accept.
As Ishar mourns the loss of his son and so many others, he finds comfort in knowing his son died a hero.
I'm devastated by the fact that I lost my son in this war against those savages. Nevertheless, I'm very proud about the fact that he stood there as a real hero protecting civilians.
Now, Didi Izhar says his son's unit successfully protected every civilian in their area that day. And he says Israel must now fight, win, and totally eliminate Hamas. Sentiments echoed by Israel's top leaders and leaders here.
Janae, are there any investigations into the atrocities of Hamas?
Well, according to Al Jazeera, the families of 9 Israeli victims of last month's Hamas attacks have filed a complaint at the International Criminal Court for genocide, suspected war crimes, and they're asking for an international arrest warrant for its leaders. Now, over 1,400 Israelis have been killed as a result of the war, but the United Nations has concerns Israel's attacks could amount to war crimes. Now, over 10,000 Palestinians have been killed. The UN is calling for humanitarian ceasefires to meet immense needs in Gaza. Didi.
Janae Bones live in Washington, D.C. Thank you. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are in Maine today visiting Lewiston, where 18 people were killed in a mass shooting last week. The Bidens have been meeting with victims, family members, first responders, and community members. The president mourned the loss of life, saying that too many Americans have lost loved ones to gun violence. Earlier today, President Biden promised to increase U.S. investment in countries across the Americas as he hosted several government leaders at an economic summit. Biden drew a contrast between the United States and China, which has offered development loans to Western countries. The summit also focused on migration, supply chains, and the environment. The New York civil fraud trial against Trump continues. Today, Eric Trump denied understanding fine details of certain Trump Organization financial statements. Trump's attorney accused the judge and his clerk of bias, citing news articles claiming they made political donations to Democrats. The judge denied these allegations. Outside the courtroom, Eric Trump said he and his siblings did absolutely nothing wrong.
This is a big charade that's a huge waste of taxpayer money. And it's the very reason everybody's moving out of New York State, and I was actually one of them. It's sad, it shouldn't happen. I love this state. This state is absolutely going to hell. And it's because of people like the Attorney General of New York.
The Supreme Court will hear a challenge to so-called bump stock ban enacted during President Trump's term. A bump stock is a firearm modification that can increase the rate of fire to semi-automatic weapons to mimic fully automatic weapons. In 2018, the ATF modified the definition of a machine gun to include the apparatus, thus making it illegal. An update in the case involving a teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old student in Virginia. A judge ruled today Abby Zwerner can press forward with a $40 million lawsuit against Newport News Public Schools over claims of negligence by school administrators. That means Zwerner could get much more than just workers' compensation for the serious injuries caused by January's classroom shooting. Lawyers for the school system tried to block the lawsuit, arguing Zwerner was eligible only for workers' compensation, which provides up to nearly 10 years' pay and lifetime medical care for injuries. Authorities are searching for the suspect in the murder of a Massachusetts woman. Police say they found the body of 31-year-old Margaret Mabitu in a car in a garage at Boston Logan International Airport on Wednesday. Now, investigators believe her boyfriend, 40-year-old Kevin Kangete, was responsible. They say he flew to Kenya, and they are working with officials there to track him down. Passengers on the Alaska Airlines flight where an off-duty pilot allegedly attempted to cut the engines say they are suing the airline. Now, the suit was filed by 3 passengers who claim they have suffered emotional distress since the incident, including nausea on other flights, insomnia, and anxiety. The passengers want a public explanation on pre-flight security screenings from the airlines involved, as well as special and general damages and amounts to be proved at trial. The pilot is facing 83 counts of attempted murder. He had pleaded not guilty. Infant mortality across the nation is on the rise. One state has seen a decline in those numbers, but doctors warn that trend is in danger. The National Desk, Megan Scrano, is in Alabama with more.
In the 21st century, in a developed nation, we should not be seeing an increase in any sort of morbidity and mortality rate.
For the first time since 2002, the CDC reports an increase in infant deaths nationwide. to leading causes of death that saw a significant increase, maternal complications, and bacterial sepsis of a newborn. Dr. Leah Torres says with infections, early detection is key.
There are things that we can do as far as obstetricians to detect what's called Group B strep, ensuring that we have access to quick, successful testing when people come into labor. And so we know, is this dangerous bacteria present or not? And if it is, we can give antibiotics.
Access, Dr. Torres says, is extremely important. The story is different for Alabama than nationwide. For the state, the number of infant deaths decreased from 439 in 2021 to 389 in 2022. But just last week, 2 hospitals in central Alabama shut the doors on their OB programs.
The lack of access to healthcare in general in Alabama will lead to worse outcomes in infant morbidity and mortality, certainly. There's no doubt. The numbers went down, and that's great. They went down, I'm afraid, temporarily because of what we've seen, especially in maternal care.
Torres says infant and maternal care go hand in hand, and care for both before the baby takes its first breath is vital. A focus on expanding access to prenatal care, she says, will only help decrease the numbers in Alabama and nationwide.
Having those checkups regularly, making sure there's weight gain for an appropriate growth. We're measuring the belly in the pregnancy to make sure the baby's growing as well. There's monitoring of the blood pressure, because that is something that can happen in pregnancy with elevated blood pressure becoming dangerous, but often not known or not symptomatic, not causing symptoms. And so a big reason why prenatal care even exists is to monitor blood pressure.
Coming up here on the National Desk, changing protocol, why Baltimore firefighters are upset about new rules on the job. Plus, a sudden unexpected rise where monkeypox is making a comeback. Then, prayers answer the message a Cincinnati family has for the community after they say their 7-year-old son was left unresponsive in the hospital for days. The pace of hiring slowed last month. Today's job report shows the U.S. economy added about 150,000 jobs in October, down sharply from September's number. It's a sign the labor market is slowing but remains resilient. Economists say the United Auto Workers strikes likely played a role. The unemployment rate also ticked up slightly from 3.8% to 3.9%. Meantime, one of the largest shipping companies is laying off thousands of employees this holiday season. Today, the Danish firm Maersk said it will cut 3,500 jobs, mostly over the next couple of months. It's already laid off 6,500 workers this year. The move suggests the shipping boom that started during the pandemic is over. Customers at Bank of America, Chase, U.S. Bank, Truist, and Wells Fargo reported account issues this morning, according to the website Down Detector. The Fed said the problem was due to a payment processing network error. Banks told customers some deposits may be temporarily delayed, but their accounts are still secure and no action is needed from customers. We're starting to get an idea of what snowfall this winter will look like across the country. Scientists say it'll be at least a moderate El Nino winter, the first in several years. These new maps show where snow is more or less likely during El Nino winters. It usually means colder and wetter weather in the south, shown in blue, and drier and warmer conditions in the north, shown in brown. Speaker Mike Johnson says the House GOP is getting close to a decision on whether or not they'll move forward with articles of impeachment against President Biden. The National Desk, Kayla Gaskins reports.
The current impeachment inquiry against the president stemming from concerns over Joe Biden's involvement in his family's international business deals with companies tied to foreign governments like China.
Joe Biden exposed himself to future blackmail and put America's interests behind his own desire for money.
The latest evidence presented by the House Oversight Committee came from personal and business bank records of the president's brother James and his son Hunter. Oversight Committee Chair James Comer releasing a memo alleging the committee found a $40,000 check from 2017 sent to Joe Biden from his brother. According to Comer, this is laundered money that came from a business deal with a Chinese energy company linked to the Chinese Communist Party.
It's also worth remembering that Biden family efforts to secure millions from this Chinese company began when Joe Biden was still vice president.
Comer also alleged the Biden family bank records show extensive tax evasion. White House spokesperson Ian Sams responding, Comer's lies and conspiracy theories are getting more desperate by the day. The president's son, Hunter, who facilitated many of the international deals in question, has received intense scrutiny from the right. Critics latching on to his crack cocaine addiction and affinity for prostitutes and partying, which was well documented through evidence obtained on his laptop. Hunter publishing an op-ed this week accusing his father's political enemies of weaponizing his addiction. This as the House reportedly weighs issuing a subpoena for the president's son, which would mark an escalation of their impeachment investigation. I'm Kayla Gaskins reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
We are learning more about the FBI raid yesterday at the home of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' chief fundraiser. According to the New York Times, the federal investigators are looking at whether anyone conspired with the Turkish government to get donations for Adams' 2021 campaign. They're also looking into the possible involvement of a Brooklyn construction company and a small university in D.C. with ties to Turkey. Adams himself is not accused of wrongdoings and pledges to cooperate in any inquiry. The FDA wants to ban brominated vegetable oil, or BVO, which is found in some sodas. We are working to get that video up for you. Now, the agency says it is determined BVO is unsafe based on animal studies showing it is toxic to the thyroid. California became the first state to ban the additive last month. It's already banned in Europe as well as Japan. The FDA will take public comments on the proposal through January 17th. A new antibiotic has been proven effective against the second most common STI in the U.S. On Wednesday, a late-stage clinical trial showed zoliflodacin cured so-called uncomplicated gonorrhea infections, as well as the current recommended treatment. This comes amid growing concern about drug-resistant strains emerging. The drug could hit the market by 2025. Starbucks officials say they plan to add about 17,000 more locations by 2030 as part of a bigger goal to grow the company. In all, Starbucks wants to have 55,000 locations globally in that time frame. The company also has a $3 billion cost-saving plan, including making stores more efficient. But Starbucks also says baristas will be paid more. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. Tonight we start in Maryland, where Baltimore firefighters are bracing for a battle over a new change in how they fight fires.
If this order had come out during my tenure, I would have been fired on day one.
On talk radio today, listeners got an earful from firefighters who are fiery mad.
This is a horrible idea. It's a knee-jerk reaction.
Their frustration is over this internal memo obtained by Fox 45 and issued by city fire administrators this week. It details a change of protocol and how fires will be fought, ordering that effective immediately, units arriving on the scene of a well-involved structure fire, whether occupied or vacant, will initiate an external attack only, and bars firefighters from entering a building until the incident commander determines that the structure is sound for members to operate safely inside.
That's putting lives at risk.
The policy change comes after the deaths of 5 city firefighters in the past 2 years. The new policy says the only time firefighters can now enter a burning building without clearance from a commander is if there is a credible report of a trapped individual with survivable spaces. Union President Matt Koster fears firefighters could be disciplined if they rush inside a burning building before getting permission from a commander. For now, it appears the policy change isn't going down without a fight.
This is akin to telling a police officer not to enter a schoolroom if there's an active shooter.
Now over to Florida. Firearms instructors in West Palm Beach say many gun owners are choosing not to participate in safety courses after a new permitless concealed carry law went into effect in July. One instructor says he has seen attendance for concealed carry classes drop tremendously as gun owners are no longer required to take such courses. Despite this, he believes a responsible gun owner should still sign up for training.
I wish people would realize that it is a power tool, and as you purchase one, as you carry one, you're also carrying a certain amount of responsibility.
To avoid accidents, instructors encourage gun owners to know the different storage laws and best practices. In Nevada, Clark County is seeing an unexpected rise in monkeypox cases. Health officials say 7 new cases were reported in the county last month. The Southern Nevada Health District said it last reported a case of monkeypox at the end of August, and reports were significantly declining at that time.
So this is that sudden slight increase in reports that we're hoping doesn't lead to an outbreak, but it's concerning enough that we wanted to remind people that they can take steps.
Officials strongly encourage vaccinations for anyone who is eligible, including those who had contact with someone who has monkeypox. Coming up next, an important message, what this 7-year-old boy has to say to those who answered his family's urgent request. A big thank you today from a family who's been praying for a miracle for their 7-year-old son. As the National Desk Liz Bonus shares, for this young student, it appears those prayers have been answered.
When Rowan Taylor's family asked for prayers, many of you responded. And today, a big thank you not just from Rowan's family, but listen to this.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for praying for me.
Rowan's family shared this video from his hospital room at Ohio's Cincinnati Children's Hospital. His mom, Kate, and his Aunt Molly told me this week He's come a long way from when he was first brought into the hospital and was unresponsive for days.
Before we got into the trauma bay, he had a cardiac arrest.
It turns out Rowan was having complications of what's called Addison's disease. It's where certain glands, called adrenal glands, don't produce enough hormones. With the help of medications to regulate those hormones and lots of cards and prayers, Rowan is now expected to make a full recovery.
And slowly he started getting stronger, like his lungs got stronger, his heart got stronger, and slowly but surely all the tubes started coming off one by one as everything got stronger.
Rowan even has a favorite teddy bear. His first grade classmates recorded this message for him on it.
Give me an R. Oh! Give me an O. Oh!
His family says these are some of the sounds, along with your prayers, that have supported a miracle.
It brought him out. It helped heal his heart at first. It helped heal his brain. It helped him come back to us. And that was like the one request I asked from God, just bring him back to us the way he was.
Hard not to see here those prayers answered.
I'll see you all soon.
Rowan is expected to have a few more procedures before he can head home, but they do expect that he can continue rehab from home and may be released in the next 10 days. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. If you did pray, thank you.
Rooting for him. Liz, thank you. Coming up next, falling back, daylight saving time ends this weekend. How it can affect your health. Daylight saving time is coming to an end this Sunday, so don't forget to turn your clocks back. For many, the transition is exciting as it means an extra hour of sleep. Doctors, however, say a change in time messes with sleep schedules, although falling back and gaining an hour is generally easier on the body than springing forward and losing one. Some lawmakers have been pushing to make daylight saving time permanent, but the legislation has been stalled in Congress. That does it for us on this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage on America's top stories. Just check your local listings. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. We'll see you then.